everybody, it's Angel from Halo Inspirations. We give you inspirations to help you spread beauty and joy through your quilting journey. Happy hump day. Whoop whoop. Happy Wednesday to each of you. Yes, another video. It's been a while since I've said it, but I am stoked. So I want to talk about a little bit just to get this started and understand where my head was coming from when I did this, because it is, you know how I feel about stories behind quilts. And this one has a story. Okay, so ironically, last year in March of 2021, I demonstrated how to hand stitch the Manx quilt. And there's a history behind it. Those people were so very creative, and it just made it so much fun to share with you the history and the block and allow you to do your own. Now, I will, for those of you who are new, I'll put a link over here in the eye and down in the description box on what the Manx quilt and how to do it is, okay? But I did a wall hanging, it's kind of heavy, last year, and my husband so nicely went ahead and framed it inside of this pieces of scrap wood that he had, okay? And they are folded, okay? This is a folding type of process, and this one was hand stitched, okay? So I hang this in my sewing room, so I am reminded of the Manx quilt all the time, because I absolutely love the creativity that those people had in their history, because it's beautiful. Entire quilts like that are absolutely amazing. Well, I want to tell you that has that story, and if you're interested in hand stitching, and I will encourage you to go watch it, even though we're going to do something similar, because it is a little lengthy. I want to say it's a little over an hour, but I show you front to back how to get those all together. This one's just a tidbit different, and I'll explain why. I want to tell you, there was a great amount of response. Y'all had stories of your own, and that just made it even more beautiful, right? For instance, Princess Cindy wrote, "I am heading to friends to sit by a fire and stitch this block. When we have enough blocks, we are donating to our local museum. They have requested some tops for some of the beds in the houses." How cool is that? I mean, having that historical process and putting it in a local museum, brilliant, right? And it just touched my heart, because her and her friend are going to have that story to share with their future, and with our future, right there in their hearts and in their local museums. I thought that was really cool. Now, another follower, I like to call them cherubs. Her name was Donna. She says, "Watching you do the Manx quilting, are there other patterns, not just the log cabin?" Thank you. "Could you sew each piece by machine if you want to? I have trouble with my hands." And I will tell you, so what I have done, yeah, the historical value behind it, they did the log cabin. But, you know, we're past the Industrial Revolution. And we've had a lot of things that were created and invented. Sewing machines, the way to cut fabric, the way to measure fabric, everything's a little different. So what we're doing today is I wanted to show you, based off of two cherubs, and I'll get to the third one in just a second, comments. So this one is a rectangle, okay, same process, and I just made a tiny wall hanging. You could make an entire quilt, and it is machine, all of it is machine done, okay. Now it's a little different because the stitching isn't showing on the back. And you'll see why later in the future clips, but it is all machine done, because I get it. My hands don't operate all that well either, as I've talked about before, and we have that technology, and although it's not a log cabin like the Manx people did from the Isle of the Island of Isle, no, the Isle of Man. There we go. I'm so sorry. They did log cabins, but we're going to take that creativity. And I got to thinking, you could do anything really with a straight edge. So you could do hexagons, triangles. I'm thinking about attempting in the future to do a diamond shape. I think that would be really cool. So yeah, you can. I mean, it's your quilt. You can do it as you wish, right? But I'm going to show you the measurements that I did and how I stitched this together. And for those of you who have seen the hand stitching, you're going to appreciate a little bit of the differences in the sewing machine on the back. Okay. And for those of you who are intrigued, I do encourage you to watch that video. Okay. So last but not least, we had Prue, our cherub Prue, and she said, I love this. I've had a go. Your instructions were so clear. Thank you. But I got to tell you, Prue took it one step further. And she emailed me sometime last year and asked me if I could help her figure out how to do rectangles. And I did. I did a little bit of experimenting. I took some pictures and I emailed them all back to her. And I want to share you her picture that she sent to me of her finished rectangular shaped Manx processed quilting. Now, she did do this by hand. She said she would do it in the evening with her hubby, and it gave her time to do some hand stitching and spend time with her other half and together at the same time, right? So I think it's absolutely beautiful. I love this. Now, if you'll look at it, if it, all the squares or rectangles are positioned in a certain way, she actually experimented with different variations because depending on how you turn your blocks may give you a completely different look, kind of like the log cabin, right? I mean, you can turn and spin your blocks in different directions and it'll give you a different look on the end product and some different secondary patterns that go inside that quilt, right? Well, that's the same with this one. And she did such a beautiful job. Miss Prue, thank you for inspiring me. And thank you for allowing me to share this gorgeous quilt with all of the cherubs of Halo Inspirations in hopes that you also inspire them. I mean, it's all about the inspirations, right? So yes, thank you, Prue. Absolutely gorgeous Manx process rectangular shaped quilt. Love it. Absolutely love it. I just had to share because I wanted y'all to see that beautiful piece of work. Okay. So one thing I do notice when I start in the next clip, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I did this and how I came to the end process, making this as a small wall hanging. Okay. I'm going to take you through. And I do tell you about the fabric requirements at the beginning of the clip. Okay, so you will understand what size you need to cut and what I used. I mean, you could do this in a whole different way as long as it works and it looks good. Remember, there's always more than one process. It's what works for you as long as we all get to the same end result, right? So, and yes, this is, even though it is done by machine, it still is folded, okay? But one of the things I didn't mention was some of the other things that I did use. Of course, scissors, fabric scissors, those are a necessity. A marking tool. I use my disappearing ink pen, which you can find in the shop. If you do something like I did where you did a small wall hanging, you can use a purple thing. Of course, there's a lot of uses for the purple thing. You can find those in our shop. A ruler, naturally. I didn't have to use anything bigger once I cut all the pieces than a 6.5 inch square, but you have to cut your pieces first. But during the video, you'll see my 6.5 inch Creative Grids square. You can also find those in the shop. And then last but not least, I don't have these. As a nurse, I had them in my nursing bag, and they have become part of my quilting bag now that I'm a quilter. And it's my hemostats, and that's just to help me turn. Okay, but you don't need these. You don't need them at all. I just wanted to share with you some of the things that I did use that I didn't necessarily talk about. Oh, one more thing that's kind of important. I do use magic pins, they're called. They're silicone based. So when I go to press over all my blocks, I leave my pins in. As you will see, my pins are in until certain points, and then I'll take them out. So I press over them. You can press over the magic pins. And I carry these also in the shop along with this really cool magnetic cup where I keep on my sewing table, and it collects all those pins magnetically, allowing it. So, oh, we're going to test. I have one upside down. So we're going to flip it over. Okay. There you go. So they hold for the most part. I mean, if you knock it, they're going to come out. But, you know, if you drop it, I've done it so many times, people can attest to that. And the really cool thing behind it is that you can place it inside like a cup. Okay. And then it has a little lid. And then you can take it with you on retreat, or if you're going to the doctor's office or down the road while you're sitting in the passenger side, not the driver's car, and you want to take your pins, it has a nice little cup that you can utilize to take your pins with you and not worry about them spilling all over or whatnots. So I have a couple of these in the shop. I have 2 colors. So if you're interested, you can find those there. I'll put a link down below. I like mine to sit on my table, so this is how I do that. All right, so enough jibber jabber. Let's get started on the Manx process. It's, you know, it's not a Manx quilt, but it is that folded way of them making their quilts, and by machine in a rectangle fashion. I hope you enjoy this, guys. I'll see you in just a sec. Okay, so here is my first block, and I want to show you the back because this is done all on machine instead of on by hand. And I know it's really hard to see. You're going to have, like, these are all my back stitches. Okay, I probably need to clean them up a little better. This is going to show. And basically, we still are going around in one motion, so it appears, but you may have some gaps. And I know this is really hard to see, so my next block I'm doing with a black thread. That way you can actually see better of what's going on. But it does look different than being hand stitched, okay? But again, we have the technology, so we're going to do this one with the sewing machine. Super cute. This is Poppie Cotton fabric. Chick-a-doodle-doo line. I use 10-inch square pack, and obviously various different colors. And I don't remember the name of this fabric right here. It is, and I know it's hard to see, but it's a tone-on-tone. I don't even remember who it's from. It's so old. But it was in my stash. It was another 10-inch square pack. So I just wanted to utilize a couple of these so that you could actually see what we're going to be doing. And it still is pleated. Still has that Manx quilt, beautiful artistic value to it, but it's done with machine, okay? And it's done in a rectangle instead of the log cabin square. So the first thing I did is I cut a 8x10 sheet, or it's not a sheet, an 8x10 square, rectangle square, no, not a square. I cut an 8x10 rectangle piece of fabric. I took it from a 10-inch square and I just cut off one edge to make it 10 inches, okay? Then for the center, I'm using a 4x3-inch rectangle, and I did a little bit of fussy cutting. Isn't she cute? Gotta love the Chick-a-doodle-doo fabric. And then what I did is I took from that same line and I just picked out 5 different sheets of, I keep saying sheets, they're not sheets, but you know, from the 10-inch square pack, I picked 5 of the pieces of fabric and I just cut them into 2.5-inch strips because you get 4 of them per 10-inch square, okay, at 2.5-inch strips. So I did all that first, and I am using 5 different colors in this, just like I did with the other one. So that's what we got for fabric necessities. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do, you want to take your 8 by 10 piece of fabric, and we're going to find the center. So basically all I've done is fold it in half. Now notice this is the, oh, you can't hardly tell, but this is the right side and this is the wrong side. We are going to be applying the block onto the wrong side of the fabric, okay? Your right side will be the back of your quilt, so you want that to show if you have a difference. So I folded it in half, I gave it a press, I'm going to fold it in half again and give it a press. And I want those lines to show. No, I'm crooked. You want them to be straight, that's for sure. Okay, so let's try that again. Give it a nice press. All right. Fold it again, making sure it's nice and straight. Give it a press again. All right. And then we're going to take our smaller 4 by 3 and we're going to do the exact same thing. And of course, I am going to, it doesn't really matter if you do the right side or the wrong side, just so as long as you can, well, the right side would be preferable because you're going to put the right side up. So this one, the right side was up, and on our rectangle, the right side was down. So we'll fold this over, give it a press, fold it over again, give it a press. You want to make sure it's straight. Okay, and then you're going to open them up. Maybe. Okay, so the right side's facing down on the larger one, and you can see the lines. And then we'll open up the smaller rectangle, the 4 by 3, and we're simply going to line up those fold lines to find where our center is. Okay, super fun, super easy. And then I'm going to give her a pin so she stays in place. And just like the log cabin version, we're actually going to start by taking our bottom edge and folding it up to the square, or I'm sorry, the rectangle in the middle. And we're going to give it a press. And what we are doing is we are forming those lines that we love and need so that we can attach our strips and get them lined up where they need to be. Ooh, and it's hot just like before. Okay, I'm going to let this cool for just a second. And then we'll open her up. And I don't know how well you can see, but yep, there you go. You can see those marks. I'm going to spin and I'm going to do the same thing. And basically we're going to do this on all 4 sides. Okay. Just like we did with the log cabin. Open her up and turn. Do the next side. Last side. Just making sure it's straight. I'm going to turn it. Whoop, we're just going to turn it to make it right. So now we have all of our lines to help get us started. Okay, we're going to use these lines to help us figure out where exactly we need to place things. And this one looks like it's going away a little bit, so I'm just going to repress it. There we go. All right. Now I'm going to pull away. Now that we've got this prep, this is the only prep that we're going to do for our lovely block. Okay, I'm going to pull away the pressing board here. Okay, the next thing I actually like to do before we do any more to this, I actually like to try and figure out which order I'm going to use my strips. So I get them all laid out, and they're each different colors. And I think what I want to do, I don't want those two near each other. And it's because, well, that they would be near each other there too. The reason is because I'm going to leave it just like this. If I put one at the beginning and one at the end, then I'm always going to be, I go in order, and you'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. But they would be right next to each other, and I don't think I want them right next to each other. They are going to overlap at times, but it will be just fine. Okay, so that's the first thing. This is going to be my order, but I don't have enough table space, so I'm going to start with the yellow. Okay, so there's a little glitch in the video, and you're also seeing a line now drawn here. I'm having little camera issues today, and I want to make sure that I explain it properly and you get to see all of it. So we've started over, third time. I will let you know that this line is, you don't have to do that, but I used my disappearing ink pen, and I have drawn this first fold that we created so you could better see it, because I know that it can be hard with the lighting that we have. So you're going to take your first strip that you want to use, and you want it to go right side facing down, and you want to line it up. That's not a straight cut, is it? And it doesn't have to be at all. Oh, that one's not straight either, but at least I have something going on. Okay, does not have to be straight, guys. You just want to make sure that you're covering the entire thing. I'm going to line this up with the edge of the 4x3 piece of fabric. Then I'm simply going to take my scissors. This is pretty much the same as doing it the log cabin style and hand piecing. This is exactly the same. It can go over a little bit. That is okay, because if you'll notice, mine is, I know it's probably hard to see, but it's there. And I'm actually going to turn this. Whoop. So you gotta want to make sure it doesn't slippy slidey. So that's why I grab my handy dandy pins and I pin it to hold it in place. Okay. I think this is a pin I need to get rid of. Can you tell that it's bent? Okay. All right. I want to make sure she is straight along the edge of the 4x3. And then I'm going to take my ruler, because we're not using a seam guide, because we're in the middle of our quilt, and because we are wanting still a straight line, I'm going to go ahead and give myself a reference line. So I'm going to go in about 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to stop at 1/4 inch away from these ends, and then I'm lining this 1/4 inch line up on my ruler on the fabric. I know that's really hard to see, but it's on the fabric, and I'll connect the two dots. So we have 1/4 inch away from this, and 1/4 inch away from here, and 1/4 inch away from there. Okay, so that's what we're going to do first. And then we're simply going to take this to the sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch right along the inside or the outside of this line, depending on how you want to look at it. So I'm going to pull you in to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so I do have a leader ender under here, which is not going to work because of where we are stitching. Now, again, I did tell you guys I'm doing this one with black thread. It will not match, okay? What is, you won't see the black stitches on the front of your quilt. You're going to see them if you don't have a black or dark fabric that the black thread will mash with or mix well with or blend into. You'll see it on the back. So I really encourage you to match as best as you can to the back color of your quilt. But I wanted y'all to be able to see this. So I'm lining it up right next to where I want to start. I'm going to do a small back stitch and I'm going to end where I stopped drawing, which is about a 1/4 inch. And actually it's not, because I took it to the all the way to the end of the fabric. So guess what, guys? This is real life. I'm just going to simply give myself a 1/4 inch. What I'm doing is I'm lining up along that 4x3 piece and not this one, because remember this one's longer, right? So I want it to be about a 1/4 inch along the 4x3 rectangle that we started with. So I'm just going to give myself a nice little hash mark on where to stop. Very easy fix if you notice it whenever you go to stitch. Very easy fix. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get this started now. And I'm going to drop my needle. Okay, like I said, I'm going to do a little back stitch. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish stitching this out. We're going to stop right about where that line is. Give another back stitch and go ahead and cut threads. Okay, so let's pull this over. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and snip this thread and pull out the pin, putting it in my handy dandy little magnetic cup there. Love that thing. And I'm going to fold it up to that line, that first fold line. Now that's why I went ahead and drew this line out so you could see it better. And I'm just going to flip it on over. Now I'm actually a little bit above it, so that's why it looks like it's not folded up to the press line, but it is. And I'm just going to simply give this a press. Now I am preferring to press this with an iron. You don't have to, but I am, so I'm going to do that real quick. Okay. And I want to show you, you don't have to do this all at the end. You could snip them now. This one buried itself a little bit. I have to unpick it a little bit, but you can snip them now, or you can worry about it at the end. I'm actually, for time purposes, I'm going to go ahead and worry about them at the end. But I wanted to show you, you could go ahead and snip these ones on the back as you were going if you preferred, okay? So we have this first beautiful strip done. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the next color on my list, which is this black. I'm turning my block. Now, whichever way you turn is up to you, because I bet you if you're right-handed, you go one way. If you're left-handed, you go the other. I'm not sure, but I would imagine. So I'm just going to turn mine this direction every time, okay? And then I'm going to open this up temporarily. I'm going to place my next strip color choice right on top, lining this edge along that first fold. Okay, because that's where our fabric is going to go out to. You'll see what I'm talking about as we continue. This is why I want to walk with you for a little bit. Now I can see where my stitch is, so I'm actually going to take my handy dandy disappearing ink and I'm going to make a little hash mark on where that is, because that's where I'm going to start sewing. So I'm going to flip this back open. I'm going to go ahead and, ooh, that's a big one. Go ahead and give it a pin so she doesn't move. Okay. And then I'm going to line this up. Now remember, we cut this original fabric just a hair bigger, right? So I'm going to want to line up my fabric underneath or along this piece, this 4x3. Okay, so you're going to see this stick out a little bit, but I'm lining it up straight along there and along that edge of the fabric. Okay, once I like where it's at, I'm going to go ahead and cut my strip. Make sure you don't cut anything underneath. That would not be good. You'll have to start over. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pin, I'll show you here, 2 places. When they get a little longer, I go with 3. Okay. Now, remember I said this mark right here, I know it might be hard for you to see, but I can see it very clearly. That's where I'm going to want to start. And then I want to take it to the edge and get a 1/4 inch. It's not perfectly straight. I'm going to leave it for now so I don't waste your time. All right. I want a nice straight line to go with first. I'm going to create a hash mark, going a 1/4 inch in. Okay. Then I'm going to line up 1/4 inch with that first line. I'm going to start sewing over here. Okay. There's no 1/4 inch about it. I just want a 1/4 inch from the edge of the 4x3. If you can see, this yellow fabric is sticking out over here, and that's appropriate, and it's okay. It's going to be hidden. So I'm going to connect the dots. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start over here and I'm going to sew straight down. So I'm going to take that with you to the sewing machine one last time, and then we'll talk some more about some other things because it's the same process over and over. So let me go ahead and bring you in. Grab my thread. Line her up in that corner that I drew. That little itty bitty corner of the lines that I drew. I'm going to go ahead and place my needle down in there. Yep. Now remember, this is folded. Okay, so we have it pinned. There is a pin underneath there. We haven't taken it out. Be careful when you go to pin your flaps up that you're not going to pin somewhere where you're going to sew. Okay, and then we're doing the same thing, guys. I'm going to do a little back stitch, and then we're going to sew along that line. And when the line stops, we stop. One more, I think. Go back stitch, forward, and cut. Okay, let's pull her over. Okay, so again, I will snip on the front. I'll snip on the back later, but we're going to take a peek at something to show you what I'm talking about with sewing machine doing this, and I'm going to take the pins out. Sewing machine and hand stitching, how one way they are different. So I still have to cut all my threads out here. This is the one that went a little wonky, and I don't know how well you'll be able to tell, but there is a small gap because I didn't actually match it perfect. That's the difference. You're going to have sometimes you'll match them perfect, sometimes not so much. You'll have those inconsistencies, but it still will be pretty. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to flip this up to the first fold line, which again I can see. Okay. Whoop. Well, actually I'm having a little trouble, so this is what I'm going to do. Go ahead and press her out. There she is. And I don't know that you can see her, but she is right in here. Okay. So we're just going to fold it up to there. All right, give it a finger press. I'm going to take mine to the pressing board, just a second. Okay, and we're gonna duplicate it. So I'm going to duplicate this with you one last time. Okay, so we will go with this green color, And remember, so we folded this up, and now I'm going to turn it the same direction. I'm turning mine counterclockwise. All right, we're going to open her back up. We're going to take our strip, lining it up on the outside with that first fold line. Okay, and then with, I'm going to pull her down, so we're not lining her up to sew yet. I want to know where my stitches start and stop. Okay, we're going to put a little mark there. All right, you see how close I came. Okay, then I'm going to open her back up. Now I still have this pinned. I'm going to leave this pin in until all 4 sides are done. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and pin this girl. Okay, and now we're going to line up along this 4x3 and along that edge of the bottom fabric. Get it as straight as possible that we like it. Okay, and then I'm going to take my scissors. Now that one's a little bigger, so I'm going to have to watch. I'm going to want to line my 1/4 inch over here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and give her a pin so she doesn't shift. This pin is going to drive me nuts because it's wrinkled. So I'm going to put that back in just a second. All right. Okay. So then we're going to make our line. Okay. This one up a little. There we go. All right, grab the ruler. Now, I wanted a 1/4 inch from this one. So this is what I'm going to do, guys. Actually, I'm going to take that pin out. Goodness grief. All right, I'm just lining it up. I'm going to eyeball somewhat because I can't see over top of it with the camera in the way. But it's going to be somewhere along here. Okay. That's the edge of the fabric underneath. So then I'm going to line up my 1/4 inch along the edge of the green fabric. I'm going to make a nice little mark. Whoops, I should have started here. So then we scoot her on down. We go to this line. And we're going to make our little box, keeping our line straight when we sew. There we go. So I'm actually going to stop here. Okay. And I'm going to start here. So I'm going to sew right along that edge. I'll be back to you in just a sec. Okay, so here she is. I'm going to go ahead and snip that tail, pull the pin, and I don't know if you can notice, but I started at that corner of the block we made and this new line that I stopped at right there. And then again, we will fold it up to that first line and go ahead and give her a press. All right. Then what do? Turn it the same direction. Remember, I'm going counterclockwise. Okay. Now I will tell you, I am keeping my fabrics in the right order. So when I go to repeat them, they're in the same order and they won't overlap too much that way. So we're going to open this up. Okay. And we're going to line it up on that first fold mark. Yep, okay. We're going to get a nice placement of where that stitched stopped. Okay. Open this back up. We're going to put the right sides together. Now I'm lining it up along this edge. Trying to get it nice and straight. Okay. That just doesn't feel straight to me. Something seems a little wonky. Okay. Then we are going to go ahead and snip it. I was going to pin. I decided to snip first. Okay. All right, now I'm going to pin it right in the middle. They're getting a little longer, so I like to pin when they're longer. You know me. I am a pinner, but I don't want it to shift. Okay. Okay, now I want you to notice this is hanging off a little bit, right? That's because it sticks out beyond that 4x3 piece underneath. So you always have to be cognitive of that. All right, now we want to go to that first press line, which I can see. It's actually pretty darn good over there. So I'm going to go to the edge of that fabric. 1, 2. That's where I'm going to stop. I'm going to line up my 1/4 inch along the edge of this fabric. I'm going to finish drawing out that square and match the points. Lower my needle here, stitch till it stops. That's all you're going to do over and over and over all the way around. But I'm going to show you the beginning of the next row to give you one more thing, and then I have one other fun tip to give you also. So let me go ahead and get this sewn, and I'll see you in just a sec. Okay, here she is. I'm going to go ahead and give her a snip. There's some I'm going to show you. I'm going to go ahead and pull out these pins. Okay. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and pull out that middle pin too, because all 4 sides are sewn. Let me go ahead and repin this one. I never pinned it. Lovely. Okay. Just so everything stays in shape. Now, I want to show you something, guys. Yep, I still got to clip my ends, right? But notice this one out and past. We're fixing to make a turn. That is why. This is normal, okay? So we're going to go ahead and fold this up to that first fold line, just like before, and give her a press. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay. Ooh, she's hot. Okay. So now we have our first round, right? So at this point, I go ahead and remove that pin, and I will eventually pin, using this one, that top one. But we're going to make that turn. I'm still turning counterclockwise. I'm going to open her up. I'm going to take the next fabric. We're starting this second row. I'm going to line it up along that edge, that first folded edge, because we're still working on the first folded edge. I'm going to go ahead and mark where my stitching is at. Put her back over. I'm going to go ahead and pin now before I forget. All right. Then we're going to line her up along that first folded seam, and I'm going to line it up along. You can go all the way to this folded seam because that'll give you a straight edge. Because remember, sometimes we don't cut it even, so you just want it to be as straight as possible. Grab your fabric scissors and snip. Okay. Now notice this one's crooked. See? Can you tell how crooked that is? It's okay because they all get folded. So nobody's going to know. Just you and me. All right. Make sure she's nice and straight. Then I'm going to do my marks just like before. Okay, we are starting the second round. So I'm going to go to, I'm going to use that first fold line, okay? Because I know that we folded this up to the first fold line. And I'm going to go ahead and go back 1/4 inch. Then I'm going to take it, line up on the 1/4 inch line along the outside of the fabric, finish my square, connect the dots, and there we have it. And just like before, I'm going to start in this corner and sew her down, okay? So I'll get that done, and I'm going to show you how we start the next rows. And then I'll have one more tip for you. So I'll see you in just a sec. All right, so now we are back. I went ahead and snipped the thread. I'm going to go ahead and pull out my pins, and I'm going to press it now, going to that next line. We are now working on the second line, second row, second line. And if you're having a hard time seeing it, I think you can, but it's somewhere right in here. Okay, I'm just going to fold it up, give it a press. All right, turn it towards me, remove this pin, grab the next fabric. I have one, don't know, oh, it is long enough. Okay. All right, so we're going to open that up. I mean, it's the same over and over until you get done. It's just once you are finished with your second row, now we're on the second row. See, this is your 4x3. We did 4 times around, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're on 1, 2, 3, 4 again. So this is the second row. Second row goes to the second fold. Once you're on the third row, you'll go to the third fold. And once you're on the fourth row, you'll go to the edge of your fabric. Okay? So we're going to line her up. Okay, I'm using this black underneath to be my guide, and the edges, I'm actually going to snip off this edge over here just a little. Whoop. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give it a pin, and I'm going to make my marks, and you're just going to do this around and around and around. Okay, second row goes to the second fold. Okay, this is the second fold. Third round will go to the third fold. Fourth round will go to the edge, and then your block will be done. So I'm going to get mine done off camera until the very end, and then I'll give you a couple more tips, and we will be done. I'll see you guys in just a sec. Okay, she's all sewn together. I'm going to pull you under here for just a second, just to show you the back side. Now, this is the one that I did with the same color thread, okay? A lot less obvious, and this is the one that we did together with the black thread, but I wanted you to be able to see that, okay? And it's noticeable. It is what it is, but how are we going to finish this? Now, let me come back at you. If you wanted to, you could finish it just like we did with the hand stitching Manx quilt, okay, with the log cabin. And I put a link in the description, like I said, and there's a link over here up in the eye. If you're watching on your phone, maybe on your computer, there might be a little eye over there. But to make things simpler, I also put it down in the description box, and you could just click on it. Okay, you can finish it just the same. I did use machine to put the blocks together, but then on the back side, I did a little hand stitching. Now, if you just want to do complete machine, listen, guys, this has batting, okay? This basically, your foundation piece puts a little weight on it. I wouldn't personally, now it's your quilt, so you do what you want, but I wouldn't quilt the top because you'll lose the pleats. You'll lose the effect, and I don't even know what that would mean, because if you run over it and flip the edge, that would be a complete nightmare. So this is not designed to be quilted. It's already put together on the foundation. But what I am going to do, and if you're interested, once you have all your pieces together by machine on the front, okay, here, let me pull you under. I'll just show you really quick what I did in the past. So basically, let me pull this pin out. What I did is I pulled back the underside, okay, so that all that was exposed was the tops, okay. This wasn't the best piece to show you with. Okay. So there's no batting, there's no foundation on the back. I'm just holding on to this top piece, okay, that was the outside. And then what you do is you take your other block and you line them up and you give it a nice pinning, and you basically stitch a 1/4 inch along your edge here, okay. And what that'll do is it will sew your two pieces together with a beautiful, neat seam, okay. Now what I'm going to do with this one, you have an option, because then you won't have to contend with doing any hand stitching on the back. I personally do not know what to do on the back for machine stitching, okay. So this is my suggestion. Whatever size quilt you make, I'm going to go ahead and do this with this block with you, and you'll understand where I was coming from in the big scheme of thing. But you'll want to create a backing that is the same size as the quilt you built, okay. So if you have 6 blocks by 4 blocks by 6, or 6 blocks by 8, or whatever you have, measure it out, get your backing with it, okay. And I've done that. I'm going to show you what I've done. I'm going to turn mine into a single wall hanging. I think it'll be so super cute. Let me turn you back over. So I have, let me move that out. There we go. I have a piece of 8 by 10 fabric that comes from the same line. It's still Chick-a-doodle-doo by Poppie Cotton. It's the same line. It's another 8 by 10. I just cut off 2 inches. Okay. So then what I did, yeah, and I had a little issue, so I'm gonna walk you through this. I made these little wall hanging handles. They're just a little tiny thing. So let me show you how I did that. I did a little piece for you. This is a 2.5 inch strip, and what I did is I first folded it, got a little piece of bling. I first folded it in half and pressed it. What that did is it gave me a center line, and then I took one side to the center line and I pressed it, and then the other center line and I pressed it, and then I could fold them together to form a strip. But before, I went ahead and did this, and then I cut it in half, so they're 5 inches long. Now you could start with 5-inch strips, 5 by 2.5. That's fine too. But once I cut it in half, I then took this edge and I folded it in and I pressed it, and I did it on the other edge too, okay, because remember, this is 5 inches, so I did exactly the same thing on both sides. Then I simply took it and I folded both ends in to the center again, and I pressed it again, and then I folded it again and pressed it again. And what that does is it hides the ends for you. It makes it so they're not going to fray on you, and these aren't going to fray either. And then I simply took my 5-inch strips with both ends folded in, and I did like 1/8 of an inch straight stitch along the edge to make sure that it all stayed together. And I back stitch at the beginning and the end, so those stitches will not come out. However, I then took my, and I had a little issue with this one, but it's going to be all right. So I took my I measured out 2 inches from the end on this side and 4 inches from this line. Okay, so that should give you 2 inches over here, 2 inches over here, and they're basically centered. And then I put my little hanging, whatever this thing is called, my little hook thing, and I put it so that the edge was on the inside of this line and the inside of this other line. I lined up that edge, okay? And then I took it to the sewing machine. Yeah, I took it to the sewing machine and I put, with my walking foot loaded, I actually stitched from the top so I could see what was going on. And I just went in probably about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little more, but not at a quarter. Okay, so it's somewhere between 1/8 and a quarter on both sides. Now this one I had a little issue with, and it'll be fine. But now I'm not going to be able to see them when I go to stitch my backing on. So I wanted to put those on first, and I put them on the right side, okay, on the right side of the fabric. Then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the right side of this facing up and the right side of my backing fabric on top with the hooks on the inside. So this is what I was saying. I can't see when I go to stitch all this together. I can't see what's going on. And I know that they've already started fading, but I have marked a 2-inch from this line and a 4-inch from that line again. This is where I'm going to start stitching, and I'm going to stop here, and it's going to leave me a hole, but I'm going to go about 1/4 inch all the way around, maybe a little more. No, it's not, because I actually have my seam guide on board. So I'm going to do 1/4 inch all the way around. I'm going to start here, go all the way around, and I'm actually going to go off the edges. Okay, I'm not even going to pretend to make turns. It's just going to go straight off. So each, and when I go through here, I'm just going to make sure, which I should, I'm going to hide this stitch, and this one I'll definitely hide because it's a hot mess. So then I'm going to come around here, do another 1/4 inch. Then I'm going to start here and stop right here, back stitching on both places where I stop and I start. Okay, so I'm loading this up, and I'm actually going to pin because I don't want any shifting. Again, I do have my walking foot loaded, but because this is so not that big, I personally, if you don't want to pin, you don't have to, right? You never have to do any of the things that we show you, but I want to go ahead and pin because I'd like everything to stay. And you know, I've got that loosey-goosey fabric going on between the foundation piece and the other pieces, the pleats or the folds. But I'm just going to do some pins, hoping to keep it all lined up. And then, like I said, I'm going to take this and do 1/4 inch all the way around, except for leaving myself a 4-inch gap. Now, you could do this with a larger quilt because you already have the weight and for some warmth. I mean, it's not going to be a cuddly, warm quilt without that batting, but you'd have to tack that batting in so that it doesn't shift, and you know, you only have 8 inches. There's a lot of different ways that you could do this. It's all up to you, but this is the way I'm going to do it. So I'm going to take this to my sewing machine, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch that 1/4 inch all the way around. Okay, I just want to show you. Got one thread here. All right, I have left my hole. Okay, and I've done 1/4 inch all the way around. I did just jump on, I went off all the way, jump back on, so you get these little like marks. Now, if you really truly wanted to, you could, to save some bulk, go ahead and snip off that corner. Okay, you can actually come in on each side a little bit. Just do not do the crosshairs. You want to make sure that you leave that that little X that's there, okay? I'm not going to do that. I don't feel like it's going to make or break me one way or the other. So I'm going to leave mine. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hemostats that have thread on them, and I'm going to reach inside that hole. Okay. Now, if you don't have hemostats, you can just do your hand. It's going to work just fine. I just want to grab a little piece. And remember, we back stitched at the place that we started and the place that we ended. And that way, when you're going to turn this, it actually will stay together, okay? I'm just going to push them on through. I've got a nice little place here that my hemostats, and they'll stay on there, so I can just leave it and fiddle with this quilt. All right. There's my first little tag. Now I will tell you, and I don't know if I said it earlier, I did back stitch when I tacked the little hooks on. I back stitched then. I didn't whenever I attached the backing, but it's not a bad idea to give it some reinforcement. But this doesn't weigh very much. But if you had a very large quilt, you're definitely going to want a larger tag, right? So you're going to have to work with a larger tag, but you're going to want to support it too. And you're going to want, depending on how long it is, you may want more than two, because you want to be able to support the quilt appropriately. Now normally I use my purple thing, but I thought I'd give this a try. It's a plastic cuticle pusher. I found it in my bathroom, didn't even know I had one. And there's nothing sharp or pointy or anything that's going to go through my fabric, at least I don't think. So I thought I'd give it a try, because some of us have cuticle pushers, but we don't have a turning tool. So I just want to get the corners out as best as possible. And then I go along the edge of my fabric. Here, I'll switch cameras for you. Okay, so I just go along. Let me stand up here a bit. And I just push these out, these seams a little bit. Okay, get up to the corner and do the same process. And I'm turning, I go ahead inside, I'm turning it to help push that corner out. There we go. Whatever it takes for you to get it where you're happy. Then I'll just go along the edge again. This corner doesn't want to come out. You can use just your finger too. I don't have great nails, so it's never an option. But once you have this all exactly the way you want it, you still have this hole to contend with, right? Let me get that other corner. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to fold it in a little bit. Sometimes when you stretch the hole, the fabric will naturally want to fold, but I think because there's so much going on here, it wants to be, well, that and I'm on camera, wants to be a little more difficult. But I'm just going to make sure that I have enough fabric going on each side. Okay, so when we look inside here, I've got fabric going down it. Okay, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to give this a good press. I'm going to make sure I'm comfortable with everything that's pushed out. I'm going to give this a good press, and then I'm going to do an 1/8 of an inch stitch all the way around the outside of it. Just a single top stitch. Let me go ahead and pull that thread. And I did use black thread, so I think I'm going to have to change, I don't know, it'll make it pretty. It'll give it a little decorative edge to it. But I'm thinking about using like dark Orfil Dove, that light gray. But now, one thing I do want to mention, notice my tags here. I actually have a directional fabric in the center, right? I've got this cute little chicken. So I wanted to make sure that my tags were going to be on the top, because then when I hang it, my chicken's going to be upright. Let me flip it over. My chicken will be, you know, when I hang this up, it's going to be simply looking like a normal chicken, right? So let me go ahead and get that done. Doesn't she look super cute? All right, I'll see you in just a sec. Okay, here she is. Isn't she absolutely darling? Now I did go ahead with the Dove Orfil Gray. Okay, this is a little hanger that I got. It's got, this isn't centered, so it kind of confuses me. But isn't she cute? Absolutely love this. Just one idea that you can do with this. Oh, see, you got to hang it, right? I mean, it just has to be hung. What a cute decoration that'll make. But yeah, again, you can do the same method with a larger quilt, and just make sure you have enough backing and leave a hole big enough for you to pull all that through and get all your corners out, and then 1/8 of an inch stitch around. I think that'd be the easiest way if you want to completely machine make one of these. So yeah, I hope this was inspiring for you. I appreciate, again, for those of you who've been asking for different things and questions, and I'll do my best to give you that. And this is totally from a viewer's questionnaire. I mean, there are a couple of them, as I talked about in the beginning. I absolutely love this. Now I have another block, so I am going to do the same thing, and I'll probably gift it with a little hanger, because how cute would that be, especially if they're a quilter? Because and it depends on the fabric you use. I mean, you could do something that would definitely be geared towards the person that you're gifting it to, but as a quilter, we will appreciate all these pleated and, you know, the Manx quilt process, and what that looks like. It's super darling. But that's it for today. I will be on Facebook Live at 3 p.m. for live quilting and answer session. So if you have any questions, of course, you can always drop them down below. Would love to hear from you. But questions, comments, suggestions, anything your heart desires. But we will be on live at Facebook. The link for our business page is down below. So it is Halo Inspirations. You can come out, and I'd love to see you there. Absolutely would love to see you there. But so I'll be there at 3, and next week there won't be a video drop per se, but what we're going to do is our live cherub chit chat here on YouTube. So I hope you come out and get together, and so we can get to know each other a little better. But I'll be there, and if you have any questions for me at that point, don't hesitate to ask. So yeah, I'll be there next week, next Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time, because I'm here in Virginia on YouTube for that live event. But that's what we're doing next week. This is the Manx rectangular quilt process. Manx quilting with machine and complete machine, and in a rectangle shape. So I hope you've enjoyed this. But until next time, guys, happy Wednesday to you. Happy hump day to you. And until next time, may you all continue to be inspired, productive, ever so joyful. Never stop believing, and never stop making your dreams in quilting come true. I love y'all. Happy quilting. And one last time, thank you, Prue, for your gorgeous picture of your quilt. It was such a delight to see that finish. And I'll see you soon. Love ya.